50, both of you, not one of you in particular, you're both very 50.
Is this real? Are you in here?
Never mind. Okay,
Yeah, please, please. Not on the date. It's a long debate.
We're debating you guys should be really lucky.
$7% off. Nice.
I'm Sherry. Yeah. And I'll be timing too. So we know the clock time. Yeah. Okay. But you know what? It was in yeah, I'm gonna time two, but yeah, that'd be good. Let's just give you the time. I did a question.
Sure.
Said to ask
Sure.
about
You guys need
that.
any help or anything, just let me know, right?
Yes, school.
Not necessarily, but could be, yeah.
It's gonna be good.
Probably.
Listen. No, I'm not coaching, I'm here.
That probably should be, that stands. You're right.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, you have a question? I don't have any papers.
And so it's two, yeah, there's separate things. There's who lands, which side lands.
Have you guys points?
No.
The timer, this is your timer.
She's gonna do the phone test.
Sorry. Oh, the coin toss, yeah, she should have the coin in there. She doesn't. You do the coin toss.
Okay. All right. I should know who everybody is. Hi, I'm your judge. I'm Sherry Dixon.
Nice to meet you.
And
I'm
you're-
Sophie.
Sophie and Omar.
I'm Ahana. I'm John B.
Hi, welcome everybody. So how do you call it? Who does it?
Just choose one side or the other to call it, and then if they win, then they can choose first. and if they lose,
Okay,
the other
you
side
guys get to
chooses.
call it.
Tails.
Tails.
We'd like to go con.
You what?
Like to go con.
Con, okay.
We'll go first.
You'll go first. Okay.
You guys-
You guys want to air con going on here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Please, that would be good for me, just as a spectator. You guys are sweating more than I am.
Sophie and Omar are pro,
Yes.
going first.
Yes.
Ahana and
John B.
Jonathan are con going second.
Yes.
Just a moment.
Judge ready?
Yes.
Opponents ready? The resolution today is on balance. Non-governmental organizations are more effective than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people. First off, according to Harvard Law School, non-governmental organizations are typically mission-driven advocacies or service organizations in the nonprofit sector. According to Merriam-Webster, disadvantaged people are considered to be lacking of the basic resources and/or conditions such as standard housing, medical and educational facilities, civil rights, and financial aid. My partner and I accept the resolution that NGOs are more effective than governmental organizations at improving the lives of disadvantaged people. This is due to the NGOs' effective means of self-advocacy, their efforts in eliminating misconduct in the actions of governments, and their ability to retrieve qualitative data from the local communities. Governments don't oftentimes advertise for the work they do in the humanitarian aid field. As opposed to this, there are many instances in which NGOs have in ways that catch the attention and more actively engage with members of the community, raise awareness of issues, and incentivize potential donors and other local personnel to volunteer. Successful NGO and charity marketing campaigns use videos, posters, and flyers. Some organizations that do this are Save the Children and the AML Foundation. The advertisement proposed the focus of these NGOs in cases they are involved in that aim at audiences' ethos in order to take the initiative and offer help in the aid NGOs are providing their communities. According to Congressional Research Services, there are restrictions such as principles and laws imposed by the Congress in America that they must abide by. This makes it more difficult to vary their means of advertising and limits the content that is being conveyed, which in turn can lower the effectiveness of the advertising. With the more influential means of self-advocacy, NGOs will more likely motivate the local communities to donate and/or help out. Our second contention is that NGOs monitor the actions of governments and pressure them to act according to human rights principles. This is much needed as an example of government involved in human rights abuses in Nicaragua when in April of 2018, Nicaragua's national police and armed pro-government groups went up against protesters, which led to more than 300 deaths and 2,000 people injured. Hundreds were detained. Detainees were subject to serious abuses, in some cases amounting to torture and denied due process. Following a report on this, the Ortega administration failed to hold perpetrators accountable for abuses and instead promoted senior officials who bear responsibility for killings and torture of demonstrators. In response to the High Commissioner's second report, the government has even defended the armed pro-government groups that participated in repressing protests. Misconduct in governments like this is exactly why NGOs' efforts in monitoring the government's actions are necessary. According to United for Human Rights, an example of their efforts in pressuring governments to act accordingly is Human Rights Watch, which is dedicated to protecting the human rights of people around the world. They investigate and expose human rights violations, hold abusers accountable, and challenge governments and those who hold power to end abusive practices and respect international human rights law. Our third contention, NGOs hand-in-hand work with poor population proves their capacity to work with local communities and not only rely on knowledge by research, but qualitative data they intake when engaging in their local networks. According to the role of NGOs in data collection management, NGOs conduct research with community interviews, collect environmental data, design research studies, and they train citizens to collect data through a participatory approach. This ensures a thorough and effective evaluation and data collection. As opposed to this, governments oftentimes use these NGOs to gather their in-field data instead of doing it themselves. For example, according to WHO, the cluster approach was created to address gaps and to increase the effectiveness of humanitarian response by building partnerships between UN agencies, the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement, international organizations, and NGOs themselves in order to be better partners for the host governments. With reference to the U.S. National Library of Medicine and National Institute of Health, one example of this is a response to the health problem system in Sudan. WHO and UNICEF serves as the connection between the two entities. These international organizations collect data and information about the health situation. Due to this, we must accept the resolution that on balance, non-governmental organizations are more effective than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people. Thank you.
Thomas Jefferson once said, "Government exists for the interests of the governed, not for the governors." Good afternoon, Honorable Judge and esteemed opponents. Today, we are the negative and we firmly believe that the resolution presented is untrue. We accept the definitions given by the Bureau and would hence like to move on to the claims. Firstly, the claim was that NGOs have self-advocacy and hence have a chance of promoting their work and encouraging citizens to participate in work. One part of this was advertisements. What hard statistical data does the proposition have to present to the court to show us that these advertisements actually had an impact on the people? Just by creating advertisements, it does not guarantee that any action truly has an impact unless there is statistical research taking place, which truly shows the efficiency of any such ad. The second argument was that NGOs pressure governments to keep human rights in check. Isn't this also considered to be the job of the UN, which is an intergovernmental organization which is predominantly run by governments? Any human rights violation that an NGO would report would be based on decisions that governments have taken in the past to understand that this is a globally accepted standard. How does this truly show the NGO's efficiency, especially when there is no proof shown that the governments did not recognize these actions as human rights violations. The last claim that was presented was that the NGOs work with people in local areas. However, wouldn't you say that it is easier for governments to know the needs of the people, as the government is the governing authority and hence has the resources required to truly reach out to each and every person in each and every situation, as NGOs may not be aware of all the different ethnic cultures and other kinds of restrictions present in a country. To move on to our first claim, we believe that in many cases, governments and NGOs need to work together to create a viable solution. The example of this is in the health sector, where the Indian government, alongside intergovernmental organizations and NGOs, eradicated polio in 2014. Many people truly believe that this was an initiative taken by an NGO, Rotary International. However, in reality, without government funding and reach, the Door-to-Door campaign initiative would have been absolutely impossible. The government promoted this vaccination. Due to this, the vaccinations met with little resistance, especially through the introduction of big social figures like Amitabh Bachchan, who is a famous actor in India, and it's showed to improve the number of people coming to get the vaccines by an immense amount. According this, due to the Indian government's involvement in funding and directly planning and overseeing the initiative, the country of India was officially declared polio-free, and it is corroborated by a WHO report which officially certifies India as a polio-free country. Due to this, we can see that governments and NGOs working together truly create the best possible solution in any environment, especially in healthcare. It would take 30 seconds, please. Time. Do you have any examples outside of India for your first contention? For the first contention, yes, we do. As one of the biggest partners of the polio eradication initiative worldwide is the US Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Our first question is, you said that there was misconduct in governments across the world before you went into a specific example. Do you have any articles that truly say that there is a large amount of misconduct, or is it just a few places here and there?
I'll have to look. My friend will check that. Do you have, considering that most of your evidence was mainly set in India, would you consider that on balance, because we're trying to take into account everywhere, not just India?
Due to funding from multiple governments, NGOs, and intergovernmental organizations, the world has reduced polio by 99% across the world, which would be an achievement we would attribute to the fact that governments and NGOs have been able to work together, which is further proves that. You have been. We have a question about the third claim. Are you agreeing to the fact that NGOs need to give research to intergovernmental organizations, or basically government representatives, in order to create any effective outcome?
NGOs, that example was representing the NGOs are the people who are getting the in-field data and relaying it back to the government, which without the government would not know what's going on outside of their research that they found, not based on the actual people. Do you have any more evidence for your first contention?
We do have evidence. To show how the government was truly effective, first of all, to give a little background, India constituted of over 60% of the global polio cases as recently as 2009, and since by 24, and the last case of polio recorded in India was 2011. Due to government's constant funding, filling in any gaps in communication and constantly creating, having the Prime Ministerial Cabinet supervising progress in this initiative, sending out all of the government workers to do the vaccinations, with vaccinating over 172 million children in a single day, twice a year. We would say that there is a lot. We would. We have a question again about the third contention. Would you say that governments are incapable of knowing what the people need when they are made of the people?
I'm saying that the governments are not retrieving the data themselves and that the NGOs are doing that work for them, which without they wouldn't be able, yes, they would be incapable of doing it themselves, as they rely on the NGOs in the case I do. We have 30 seconds. Yes.
Our opponents have only given evidence for India and brought up that polio was eradicated. But if we are not mistaken, that is thanks to the Bill and Melinda Foundation and their efforts put in 2009. Also, when talking about it, when asking them about India isn't the piece of evidence about India isn't on balance, they happen to only elaborate more about the polio disease in India. As previously stated, my partner and I are here to affirm that on balance, non-governmental organizations are more effective than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people. Our next reasons as to why this holds true is the fact that NGOs fill in the gaps when government are not offering help. They are more result-oriented and have narrow mandate with focus on helping people. Our next contention is that NGOs offer an organization for local communication and also distribute resources when there are no existing local organizations. NGOs fill in the gaps when government has failed to succeed at their tasks. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine and the National Institute of Health, North Darfur State has been affected by a conflict since 2003, and the government has not been able to provide adequate curative health services to the people. The NGOs collaborated by providing human and financial resources, material and equipment, and communication facilities. The NGOs supplied 70% of curative health services and contributed 52.9% of the health budget in North Darfur State. The NGO have employed 1,390 health personnel, established 44 health centers, and managed and support 83 health facilities across the state. The government has come to rely on non-governmental organizations to provide curative health services. Our next contention is that NGOs have sufficient reports to evaluate their effectiveness in the humanitarian work. According to Global Policy Forum, an example from this is the creation of the Active Learning Network for the accountability and performance in humanitarian action. In order to exchange the latest ideas on accountability, following this, the Humanitarian Accountability Partnership International includes 18 NGOs, as well as members who focus on reporting back to their beneficiaries and those who were directly affected by a disaster. After implementing these reviews, some of the biggest NGOs appointed full-time staff to improve the effectiveness of their evaluation. These methods create a manually system in order for the NGOs to maximize their humanitarian aid. Our last contention is that governments have a lot of responsibilities and focus more than just improving the lives of aforementioned disadvantaged people. Whereas one of the NGOs' main focus is to improve the welfare of the disadvantaged people. One example of this ineffectiveness of the government is Sub-Saharan Africa receiving $134 billion each year in loans, foreign investment and development aid. But in spite of this, it remains one of the poorest regions on earth, according to the Guardian. This insists that the government did not allocate resources efficiently, whereas according to the nonprofit expert, it is stated that NGOs focuses on furthering the political or social goals of their members, such as improving the state of the natural environment, encouraging the observance of human rights, and improving the welfare of disadvantaged people. Due to this, we must accept that the resolution that on balance, non-governmental organizations are more effective than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people. Thank you.
Continue 30 seconds.
Time.
The pro has told us that NGOs are able to fill in the gaps and are more result-oriented, but they've not given us any statistics as to how many disadvantaged people they've helped, or any examples where they've actually been able to fill the gaps that governments have not. In one of their examples of 18 NGOs, the global policy saying that 18 NGOs report back to beneficiaries. Who are these beneficiaries? Who's actually funding these NGOs to do what they're doing? And are these people really disadvantaged? They talked about how people detected protests and this was misconduct of the government and they were given to torture. But were these people really disadvantaged? I mean, how does helping people who were protesting against the government say that NGOs are more efficient than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people? We were told that these efforts were by Bill and Melinda Gates, but we have sources saying that without government ownership, this movement would not have been able to move further at all. And as said by a WHO article, we know that the program, which was helped by many non-governmental organizations and the government of India, in which the program involved the local religious leaders and institutions to solicit support and engagement of all sections of the society, and implemented a special plan for 107 high-risk blocks of UP and Bihar to provide a complete package of health and sanitation services, in addition to improving polio vaccination coverage in these blocks. Also, according to polioeradication.org, which is the official site for polio eradication movement, it says, and I quote, "It was a challenge. After all, India constituted over 60% of all global polio cases as recently as 2009. However, in 2014, India was officially declared polio-free, along with the rest of the Southeast Asia region, thanks to the singular commitment of the Indian government at all levels, partners of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, notably WHO, Rotary International, and UNICEF. Polio was tackled head-on, and India had not received a single case of wild polio since 2011. Through these examples, we're trying to show that NGOs and governments working together is much better than NGOs working alone, because NGOs simply do not have the manpower, the resources, or knowing the country as well as the government to be able to help the people. They talk about how NGOs are able to help people in local governments, but we don't know which local governments they're talking about and if these local governments actually have disadvantaged people. They talked about how there are 134 billion loans taken by the poorest country, as said by a Guardian article, but we don't know who wrote this and what the credentials are. If they have expertise in the field to write about politics and how NGOs are helping. Throughout their examples, we've not received any hard statistics or proof coming back to the claim that NGOs are more effective, and hence the CON believes that governments and NGOs working together create a viable solution.
And our second claim is that NGOs and governments working together through intergovernmental organizations like the United Nations are better than NGOs alone. This is proven by the Guardian article written by Sam Jones, who writes a lot about humanitarian aid given to different countries, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is a very prestigious non-governmental organization. According to its figures, UNICEF has helped provide nearly 2 billion people with water, immunized 40% of the world's children, helping to save 3 million lives a year, and has helped reduce the number of deaths of children under 5 by 50% since 1990. In 2014, it responded to almost 300 emergencies in 90 countries, including the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines, the continuing conflict in Syria, Iraq, and Central African Republic, the intensification of the civil war in South Sudan, and the Ebola crisis in parts of West Africa. We are giving you these statistics and examples to prove that governments, funding, and NGOs helping through intergovernmental organizations are able to work much better than NGOs alone. We will ask the Pro to give us hard statistics and examples actually coming back to the fact that NGOs are more effective than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people. Thank you.
Take 30 seconds, please.
What source did you get that the government was essential in India?
We have quotes from AAP Publications, which is American Academy of Pediatrics, which said government ownership of the initiative at all levels of governance, absolute accountability and meticulous planning, and real-time monitoring and review of the ongoing program were the main reasons behind India's success against polio. And also this was corroborated by polioeradication.org and WHO articles. You talked about a conflict in 2003 in USA, and you said there were 1,390 health professional people and 83 health centers. Could you give us any statistics of how many disadvantaged people were actually helped and corroborating sources?
Well, I gave information that the NGOs contributed 52.9% of the health budget in the whole state, meaning that the NGO has contributed that to the 52% to the people and the government. Do you have any other evidence other than the polio?
Well, we've given a second claim which shows UNICEF, which is funded by governments and NGOs, are proving to help a lot of people, like millions of people, who are disadvantaged in poor countries, giving them immunization, health services, and humanitarian aid. You said that 52% of the 52.9% of the health budget was given by NGOs, but that doesn't give us a number of disadvantaged people actually helped. Were they able to come out of this crisis? Do you have any statistics?
Well, I'll show you. What was the government's role in the polio epidemic? Because we know that they failed in trying to help them in 1995.
Well, as we said, the program involved the local religious leaders and institutions to solicit support and engagement of all sections of the society, and implemented a special plan in 107 high-risk blocks of UP and Bihar. And the Prime Minister's cabinet in India directly supervised and audited the progress of the program, and the Indian government filled any gaps in funding. Through these, we're trying to show you that NGOs and governments working together is better than NGOs alone. And these are all given by WHO articles. You said that NGOs are filling gaps and result-oriented, but do you have any statistics and examples of how they have helped people, disadvantaged people?
I'll bring that up. Also, you say that although you say that NGOs work best with governments, we give you evidence as to when NGOs did all the work to retrieve information. Were the governments Where were the governments?
Well, as well, you said that the government has worked outside their research, but you've not given us any articles saying that they've not given that research, so we don't really know if there were any research done by the government. Since you failed to give the name of which government they don't, which government.
At this point, my partner and I have attempted to prove that on balance, non-governmental organizations are more effective than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people. Our contentions as to why this holds true is due to the NGO's effective means of self-advocacy, efforts in eliminating misconduct in the actions of governments, ability to retrieve qualitative data from the local communities, ability to fill in the gaps when the government is not offering any help, being more result-oriented, and lastly, having a narrow mandate with focus on helping people. Our opponents stated that one of their contentions were that governments relieve health issues raised in countries, and they referred to polio in India. Not only is that not representative of the world as our resolution refers to, our opponents raised concern about how NGOs helped in our opponents raised concern about how NGOs helped in our second contention. However, we clearly stated that they were the ones retrieving the representative information in the field as opposed to the government. Our opponents stated that polio was eradicated in India near 2011, but that is thanks to the Bill and Melinda Foundation, which is an NGO, not the government, who had attempted in 1995. Our opponents raised concern about NGOs retrieving information for the government and asked if we think the governments were incapable of doing this themselves. Considering we gave an example where this held true, we agree. Our opponents raised concern as to how the NGOs have helped in the health sector. Considering we have provided evidence that NGOs supply 70% of curative health services and contribute 52.9% of the health budget in North Darfur State. The NGOs also employed 1,390 health personnel, established 44 health centers, and manage and support 83 health facilities across the state. Since our opponents have not provided any evidence for the efforts by the government, this is the best help they have gotten in the state. Thank you. Thank you.
You get 30 seconds to discuss it.
Throughout our case, we have tried to prove that NGOs and governments working together create the best results across the world. To give a statistic for how the polio eradication movement moves beyond just India, the world has almost completely eradicated polio, with it reducing by 99% since 1980 through the funding of the U.S. Center for Disease Eradication and Prevention and NGOs as well as intergovernmental organizations all working together to create the best solution. There are only 3 countries in the world left with polio in their stance. To show how the government helped, as we have stated multiple times before, the government was the main supervisor and ensured that the service was truly being provided to the people, as well as the fact that all of the government employees and clerks were sent out to actually give the vaccines due to the fact that people trust the government to do what is right for them. Throughout the multiple claims given by the pro, they have failed to give us hard statistics for how NGOs self-advocacy helps, how their ability to retrieve data truly helps people, because we have no proof that the data they are retrieving is for disadvantaged people. How does retrieving data truly help disadvantaged people? And they also said that NGOs are result-oriented. However, we have no proof showing us that either governments are not result-oriented or that NGOs are result-oriented. Through their example, they also stated that 52.9% of the health budget in the whole state is contributed by NGOs, but they failed to provide us hard statistics of how many people have been helped by the money they have donated. By just giving in money to any cause, it does not prove that disadvantaged people are truly being reached out to and truly being aided throughout the evidence. And this is why we believe that our case stands. Thank you. Although you say NGOs work best with governments, we have evidence as to when NGOs did all the work and to retrieve information where the government simply just accepted it and didn't do any of the work themselves. So what would you say that that's not working hand in hand, that government's having the NGO doing their work? Do you have any specific example where this has occurred? If you do not provide us with a specific example, we cannot believe that this claim is completely true, and so we do not. But you don't agree with it? We don't agree with it because we have no hard evidence or any hard evidence. We give you evidence as to when NGOs had retrieved the data and then WHO had relayed it back to the government. Thus the government getting the information. How does this help disadvantaged people? Because the data would be collected about anything. The data was collected about disadvantaged people. It was about it was in the disaster relief sector. And what was the result of this data being collected? Just collecting data does not actually help disadvantaged people. Well, it's a way of knowing what's actually going on, because if the government doesn't know what's going on, how are they supposed to help in the first place? Without NGOs doing the work for them, they wouldn't know. And therefore, no results would have outcome from it.
So you're saying that this data received is given to governments, and you're saying that without this data given, the governments won't be able to help. So are you agreeing with the fact that in the end it's governments who are helping disadvantaged people, since you did say that this data is given to governments who then go ahead and help the disadvantaged people?
I was referring to a specific example of when NGOs and governments were working hand in hand and NGOs were doing the actual work. So I can't say that that applies to India itself, but as for that, this specific example, yeah, it does. Are you agree? I'm sorry, just it's our question. You stated that there is no evidence. You stated that there is no evidence that the government's that the means of self-advocacy for NGOs were actually efficient, but NGOs rely on donations. In order to get them, they must pitch their scope and their intentions for helping their communities, as opposed to governments who don't rely on donations, so they don't have any, there's no evidence as to them being efficient or getting any outcome from self-advocacy. What is the question? So when you say that that doesn't stand true, that if it is irrelevant to the resolution, you stated that our contention about the NGOs being more efficient in self-advocacy is irrelevant, correct?
No, we said that you talked about how self-advocacy helps NGOs be able to improve the lives of disadvantaged people better than governments, but we said that we were not given any reliable sources or any statistics of disadvantaged people being helped and how governments were inefficient at doing this, which is our resolution.
Our question is, do you...
partner and I believe we won this debate because we have clearly proven that on-balance non-governmental organizations are more effective than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people. We have supported each of our contentions with evidence and statistics from experts. We have proved to our judges that these main points about the effectiveness of NGOs as opposed to governments when alleviating the lives of disadvantaged people. Some of the contentions that were not addressed were their ability to retrieve qualitative data from the local community, their ability to fill in gaps when governments are not offering help, and NGOs being more result-oriented, and lastly, having a narrower mandate with focus on helping people. It is hard to overlook the efforts of NGOs are putting in to eliminate, monitor, and hold governments accountable for their violation of human rights principles. As I previously stated, an example of this would be the Human Rights Watch. It is also hard to dismiss that the fact that NGOs will fill in when governments have put no effort to. The evidence we have proved to support this claim was in North Darfur State, and when the government was not able to provide adequate healthcare services to their people. Judge, for this reason, we urge a strong pro-ballot in today's debate.
We have a minute remaining, private. So could we use that minute?
The Pro, throughout their cases, have not given us any hard statistics of how many disadvantaged people have actually been helped, which is our resolution. They said that their examples come from experts, but we were not given any names of any experts if they actually have degrees in fields relating to the topics we're discussing about. They said that they have the ability to collect data, but has this data been collected given any results? Without any results, how do any of their claims and arguments stand, since we do not know if any disadvantaged people were helped? Through our examples, we've shown that governments and NGOs working together is better than NGOs alone. We have shown how India, which solicited 60% of all polio cases, was eradicated from polio successfully only because of NGOs and governments working together. You have said that governments are not able to help and that their research has been outside of the people you're talking about, but we've not been given any names of such research, what the sources are. You said that you'd be giving us examples of how NGOs are result-oriented, but we were not given any such examples through the following speeches. You said that 52.9% of the funding was given by NGOs, but just showing funding doesn't show how many disadvantaged people were actually helped, hence leaving us to decide ourselves whether disadvantaged people were actually helped by NGOs alone, and how governments are not efficient. You talked about how 18 NGOs report back to beneficiaries, but we do not know who these beneficiaries are. For all we know, these could be governments, and that actual government funding is what is helping disadvantaged people. The Pro failed to give us any hard statistics coming back to the resolution, and hence we believe that our claims that NGOs and governments working together through intergovernmental organizations like the United Nations are better than NGOs alone. And we've told you how UNICEF with government and NGO funding was able to help 2 billion people from poorest nations who were disadvantaged people, hence proving that the Pro was not really able to stand by the resolution that NGOs are more effective than governments at improving the lives of disadvantaged people.
don't know what it is.
Hard.
This is Alpha Romeo in the physics room, checking in. Alpha Romeo in the physics room, checking in.
Like, this is only for emergency. I just put the manual. I put the manual. I made my own channel. It's needed. And that's it. I don't know how many.
System of Mamiya and the system of Jendate.
All of them,
We're just walking off. It's like, okay, we're doing what we do. Listen. I know. I want to do double scale cross, right? But it's right. Yeah, then just toss the things off there. He was mad and bullshit.
Listen. Break on 40, regroup in team room.
Okay. figure out.